In this video, we're going to review the Hiboy VE1 Pro electric scooter. We're going to unbox, assemble, go over the controls, test ride, and review the e-scooter. The VE1 Pro has a 500 watt rear hub motor with a max speed of 23 miles per hour. Thumb throttle, 48 volt 10 amp hour battery with a range of up to 31 miles. Front and rear disc brakes, 16-inch pneumatic tires, headlight, tail light, and weighs 49 pounds. Additional specs can be found in the description section below. This is the box that it came in. This was everything inside of the box. We have the front wheel. We have a toolkit with, looks like the front axle, different wrenches and Allen keys. We also have the charger and the instruction manual. This is the instruction manual. You can pause at any time if you want to see this in detail. The first step is to close this tube, and in the event that this is twisted and is not parallel with the fork, you can always loosen this bolt and then these two right here, then you can twist it around, and when it's centered, you would tighten this one first so that there's enough tension on the fork, and then you would tighten this so that it clamps this in place. But for the most part, it's pre-assembled from the factory. You would pull this forward and then pull this lever back. And you can't pull this out without pushing this up and then pulling it out. Coming over here, we're going to use our Allen key to remove these two bolts. And once they're loose, you can take this off. You'll take your handlebar, and there's these grooves right here. You want to make sure that they're centered and that the brake levers are facing forward. You take your bracket again and your Allen key and start tightening them. You don't want to tighten it all the way. You want to be able to adjust the angle of the handlebar, and once you're okay with that position, you'll finish tightening these, and you can always readjust it later. And I like to alternate tightening, that way it's not too tight on one specific bolt, but that there's enough even pressure. By default, this lever is loose. You can adjust the handlebar height to your liking. I'm going to keep it down for now, and then I'm going to pull this lever in so there's enough compression to hold this in place. If it's still loose, you can turn this clockwise to tighten it or counterclockwise to loosen it. Next, we'll install the headlight. Looks like there's a bolt here and a nut on the other end. We'll just take our Allen key and take this bolt off. I noticed that there's a lot of compression on this end of the bolt with the plastic, so even though I was spinning for a long time, it wasn't coming out. I ended up using an Allen key and pushing the bolt through. That way I had enough clearance. And then coming over here, there's this hole that this goes on, and then I'll take my bolt and feed it back through, and then I'll tighten it. Next, I'll install the front fender. There's a lock nut here with a washer, and then on the other end there's also the bolt with a washer. With the short side, I'm going to feed it through and then put this bolt with the washer back through the back, feed it through, put the washer back on, and then the lock nut. While using an Allen key to hold the back, I'm using a wrench to tighten the front. Looking at this axle that it came with, there's a long bearing bush and a short bearing bush. This short side is going to go on the front with the disc brake side. So I'm going to take all of this off, keeping the same order. Looking at the wheel, we're going to put the long bearing bush on the side that doesn't have the caliper. We're going to feed it through. And then we're going to take that short bearing bush. They call this a mousing hook. And then the washer and the nut. And just for reference, the fork is going to go in between this bearing bush and this mousing hook. Theoretically, you can take the mousing hook, the washer, and the nut off, and then put this axle on. I'm going to lift this protection piece off. The brake pad has this plastic protector that you need to take off. And then you can feed the disc through to the brake pads. I have the bearing bushes inside the fork, and then I have these mousing hooks on the outside, and they just feed in that slot right there, and then I can tighten it. On the other side, I'm going to do the same thing. There's the mousing hook, and then the washer, and then this nut that goes on the outside. I'm going to use two 16mm wrenches, and I'm going to tighten both sides. If you had a hard time putting this on, you can always take the mousing hooks, the washer, and the nuts off both sides, and then putting it in first, and then putting that back on. It helps to put the kickstand down so that the scooter is stationary. I'm going to use my Allen key to take this off. It's a bolt and a washer. I'm going to do it on the other side as well. And then I'll slide this hook from the front fender in place, then retighten it. I'll do the same for the other side. And I'll do the same for the back. I'll check the rear wheel for rubbing, and it doesn't sound too bad. If it's pretty bad, you can loosen these two, grab onto the brake lever, and then tighten them. That's probably the easiest way. Sometimes the disc is bent and you have to unbend it with a special fork. I'm going to check the front wheel too for any rubbing. And I hear rubbing, so the easiest way to adjust it is to loosen these two bolts that hold the caliper in place. The one up here and then the one down here. Just so that this can move around freely. Then I'll grab the brake lever. Theoretically, the caliper and brake pads will grab the disc in the middle, and after tightening these two while holding onto the brake lever, the disc should be centered. Okay, letting go. It doesn't always work, so it was still rubbing, so I loosened these two, and I'm going to physically adjust the top and the bottom until the disc is centered. Looking over here, I just kept moving the top and the bottom until the disc was centered between the pads, and then I tightened the top and bottom. It took a bit of adjusting, but I finally got it where it's not rubbing. If there's too much slack in the line, you can turn this counterclockwise, or you can hold this, loosen this bolt right here, push it up a little more so that there's more tension in the line, and then tighten it. That way it'll permanently be grabbing more. But right now I'm just going to leave it. The controls seem pretty straightforward. This is the rear brake lever. Here's a bell. This is the display, the thumb throttle. There's also the front brake lever. Over here we have the plus, the power button, the minus, and the throttle. I adjusted the brightness so you can see the display. Pressing and holding the power button. This is the current speed in miles per hour. We're in pedal assist 1, and then the odometer is 0. This is the battery level. Pressing the power button, this is the current trip distance, and then the voltage, 47 volts. And then it brings us back to odometer. So we're in pedal assist 1, there's nothing below that. And if we press and hold the minus button, it provides a pedestrian mode where we're getting 3 miles per hour of assist. If I press up, it goes to pedal assist 2, and up it goes to 3. If I press and hold the plus button, it turns on the headlight. If I press and hold it again, it turns it off. Let's check the max speeds in each of these gears. Pedal assist 1. We're getting 13 miles per hour. Pedal assist 2, we're getting 17. Pedal assist 3, we're getting 22 miles per hour. If I press and hold plus and minus, it brings us to this set. So number 1 says 003. I can't change anything. For number 2, it says mph. If I press up, it goes to kilometers per hour, and then it brings us back to mph. 3 says 48. This is probably the voltage, and I can't change anything. 4, it says 10, and I can't change anything. 5, 103, I can't change anything. 6, 16.8, I can't change anything. 7, 001, I can't change anything. 8 says 100, and I can't change anything. 9 is 0, I can't make any changes. 10 is 2, and I can't make any changes. 11 is also 2, no changes. 12 is 3, no changes. 13 is 12, no changes. 14 is 15, no changes. 15 is 40, can't make changes. 16 is 0, I can't make changes. 17 is also 0, and I can change it to 1 or 0. I'm going to leave it at 0 by default, and then it goes back to 1. And I think if I wait, it will go back to the main menu. Okay, I had to wait about 5 seconds. And to turn it off, you press and hold the power button, and it turns it off. This is the charging port. I'm going to plug it in here. And then over here, I'm going to plug this into the wall. And this light turns red. When it's fully charged, it'll turn green. I'm going to test the acceleration max speed in each gear. There's 3 gears. The first one is gear 1. And it seems we're topping out at 13 miles per hour. Going to gear 2. Hit 17 miles per hour. Now we're at 18, 19, and that's the highest we're gonna get. Going to gear 3. At 21, 22 miles per hour, 23. And I think 23 miles per hour is the highest we're gonna get. Without any load, 26 miles per hour is the highest. But I don't know if that's possible with load on the scooter. Unless we're going downhill. We're going to test the braking. I'm going to hit the max speed of 23 miles per hour and then slam on the brakes to see how soon it stops. this cone. Stops right before the other cone. That's pretty quick. I would say that's around 8 feet. Let's try it again. 23 miles per hour, right at this cone. And again, we stopped right before the other cone. This is a slight incline, so it might help with the stopping, but shouldn't help by that much. Brakes are pretty good. Out of the box, at least for this specific scooter, the rear brake doesn't grab on until around here. That feels a little soft. There is some adjustments that I can do to tighten the brake cable. I can turn this counterclockwise. I can also turn this counterclockwise to get more tension in the rear brake cable. That way it bites on sooner, but just out of the box, it is a bit soft in the back. It doesn't bite until around here. For the front, it bites around here, and it bites pretty hard. So for example, just using the rear brake lever, it feels pretty soft. And then the front, it bites it right away. The rear end actually lifted because of how much it bit. I'm gonna scoot around and give you my review of the e-scooter. What I like most about this e-scooter is the big wheels. They're 16-inch wheels and they make the ride very smooth. A lot of electric scooters, they have wheels that are 9, 10 inches, and this is 16 inches, which is essentially the size of a small bicycle. It just makes everything super smooth. Bumps are smooth. Riding on pavement is very smooth, and just everything about it is very smooth. The brakes are exceptionally good. I slammed on the brakes and I was able to stop from 23 miles per hour within around 8 feet, and that is very good. Even though they're just regular disc brakes on the front and rear without any hydraulic fluid in the lines, they worked really well and I was pleasantly surprised. There's also a headlight and tail light, and there's a lot of foot space. I'm able to fit both of my feet on this footrest, and it's very comfortable. Just everything about it works. In terms of improvements, I don't really have many. It's just being a little nitpicky. It would have been nice if they included a rear seat, just because if you're standing on this the entire time, it can get tiring. I know that they have another model that has a seat built in, so you can check that one out. And then for me, I personally like black scooters. This is the only color that they had available. It's silver. And to me, this is just being nitpicky. I felt like this arch, I know it's functional, but it just feels like they could have done something with this design to make it look nicer. But other than that, I don't really have any complaints. It works well, it stops well, and it feels pretty solidly built. One other suggestion is that I'm 5'10", and even when the bar is at its highest, my hands feel a little low. It would have been nice if they extended this tube a little more so that I can get more reach. So if you're taller than 6 feet or so, it might feel like your hands are pretty low. And then when I pull this all the way up, I don't know how much left there is to the tube, but they don't recommend that you go any higher. And then this cable also extends. It's also 59 pounds, which isn't a bad thing. It's not as light as the smaller scooters, and it's not as portable either. So this is a very unique scooter if you were to buy this. I think it's targeted towards more urban cruising. So if you're in the market for a scooter with large wheels and good brakes, I suggest that you check this one out. It is more expensive than other scooters, but then again, it does go 23 miles per hour. Without any load, the scooter is able to go 26 miles per hour, but with load, I was only able to get 23 miles per hour, which is consistent with what it is advertised to get. It retails for $999, and as of today, there's a sale going on where it is $599. For the latest pricing with sales, check out the description section below. Please like this video if you found it helpful. Feel free to leave any questions or comments in the comment section below, and if you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you guys for watching, and take care.